Episode 12 of the Passion Collective podcast. I'm your host, Zach Frank, and today we are joined by none other than my friend, artist, Elliott De Cesare. What's going on, Elliott?
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
So good to have
Very
you
good.
here.
I know we've been trying to do this pretty long time at this point.
I know.
So it's good we
finally
came together.
I've wanted to, either write like a feature piece about your work or, do an interview. And then I started doing this, and I figured that this is the perfect medium to execute that.
Yeah, why not?
So it's been a pretty crazy year because of COVID and whatnot. And I know you, where are you currently living?
I'm living on the Upper West Side in Manhattan in the city right now. And I was there most of COVID too, and quarantine and everything. So I was just kind of doing whatever
Exactly
there was to do at that time in the city.
So it was pretty shut down. And
Shut down. Yep.
So what are you currently doing for work now?
Right now I'm doing mostly what I've done this type of work for kind of a pretty long time now, aside from my own personal artwork, which is mostly like set design and production design, for photo shoots, video shoots, fashion, all fashion actually. And I do windows displays for a store, Bergdorf Goodman.
Yeah, legendary.
Yeah. So I've always done that too over the years. So I've been there for a pretty long time, but all freelance, so I can work on my own artwork or not too. Sometimes. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's hard to.
It comes and goes.
Yeah, it comes and goes.
So yeah, your work's incredible, and I advise everybody to check it out. But let's go back to the beginning real quick. Where were you born?
I was born in New York and then moved to Washington, D.C., and then I moved back. I was there through like a later elementary school in Washington, D.C., and then this area just outside of D.C., which was called Old Town, right over the river, and that's technically Alexandria. And I was there until, let me see, third grade, and then I moved back to the Northeast, and I moved around a bit before landing in Warwick, in New York, and the area outside the city, a little bit in New Jersey and Hackensack and some other places, and then I moved to Warwick.
Awesome. So, as a kid, were you always creative? Were you always drawn to the creative side of things?
Yeah, I was. It's hard to say like if it's like any more than any other kid, because I know kids are creative, but like as far as I remember, I was always doing like I was painting back then when I was a kid and drawing a lot, and I always made things out of like found materials and things like that, which is similar to what I do now also, and it feels like most comfortable. So I kind of see like little similarities in what I like now and with what I was interested in as a kid. But yeah, to answer the question,
of course,
yeah, I was always like messing around. But my parents are both artists too, so that it definitely helps.
Yeah,
being around it, it was not like I was able to avoid it easily.
So what type of artists were your parents?
My mom, they both were fine artists, like working on their own work.
They went to school for it?
They went to School of Visual Arts in the city.
Okay.
So, they both went to School of Visual Arts. My mom was more of a commercial illustrator, but they were both painters, and my dad also worked in fashion at that time too. But they were, they're painters.
So
painters.
Looking back, I mean, if both your parents are artists, it's obviously going to bleed through into, even if you have like the natural ability. But
yeah,
looking back, when you reflect on those early years, are there any like specific moments that you feel impacted you?
Like
like from childhood
Uh-huh.
to high school, like that time
Right.
period.
That really impacted me. Well, there was like, what do you mean? Like any type of event, like
Yeah,
anything creatively? Is that kind of your
yeah.
question?
Either like that directly happened to you, or you saw that inspired you, like somebody
Uh huh.
else's work, just something that like that really like still stands out to you today.
Well, I was always interested in a lot of different types of artwork, like not necessarily just visual art. So,
Yeah,
like, I liked, reading things by different writers even when I was a kid. Not that I was like going crazy reading like book after book,
yeah.
but like all, artists of different medias always like interested me. Lots of different types of music, so that's for sure was an influence. Like I was always interested in lots of different things. So I don't know. I feel like that can be like something in like artists. Maybe that's like cliche, but are
No,
like interested in lots of
I
different
I
things.
think that the connectivity between like illustration and literature
Yeah, right.
is huge.
And but yeah, when I was younger, like what I was talking about earlier with you, like being creative as a child, I feel like those were like the best moments. And then as I got, those were the best moments creatively because I'm kind of like acting more intuitively with
Exactly.
like different subjects and different like symbols that were important to me and I wasn't thinking about them. You know what I mean? I'm just
Exactly.
kind of doing them and doing what I enjoy and I'm not like wondering like why I'm doing this bird. And I was like, I'm thinking of something I was like reproducing like pennies and covering them with different animals and painting them on them and things like that. I would build things, but at those times, like I see like a kind of a transition where like you're doing that, but then as you get older, into middle school was something I started getting more interest in understanding more about like contemporary art, other artists, and the artists that my parents were friends with me more. Um, just more like of like actual, literally those other the actual world, I guess
Yes,
we could
yes.
say,
Yeah.
of like people doing anything. So, but then with that, when you get into high school, I feel like certain ideas of mine at certain times would be more superficial and not as and not as like genuine. You start wondering, thinking about what other artists are doing, like in regards to what you should be doing. And that's something that happens to everybody though. But you know noticing that like later on after the fact is um, you know is helpful.
Of course, yeah.
So that's something I noticed looking back, is just like the my changing views of art and what it actually you know meant at different times.
Yeah, because I think when you're young, just that the pure essence and power of imagination, and just it's just flowing through you, and you're not overthinking anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just like tapped into this wave, and it's just coming through, and it's
Uh,
just freeing. And then, like you said, the more you educate yourself about art and start studying other stuff, you start thinking like, and at times, I think that's something that every artist, or just creative in general,
yeah,
musicians, painters, writers, you start questioning yourself at
yeah,
times and saying, oh, am I emulating this person too
right,
much? And just trying to find your voice and find your style.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That definitely, yeah, it happened. Of course, later on, like once you can realize that and like be a little bit more like critical of yourself, it's all of that can then work to your advantage. Also, it's like so it goes both ways. But I'm just saying, what looking back, since you asked about those times, like
yeah.
it was something for me.
Yeah, it's cool that you can make the connection, though, from what you were doing as a
Yeah.
child to your work now.
Yeah, like I see more. Yeah, like I follow. The things that actually brought like more enjoyment and yeah, it's just like what intuitively kind of strikes me and makes me want to do something, you know. So
Yeah, so you moved around a little bit, and then you went to high school in Warwick.
uh-huh.
And I feel like Warwick it's a nice small town in the Hudson Valley. The Hudson Valley itself, I think, has like parts of it has like an enchanting type of a vibe to it. You know,
Yeah.
there's just beautiful nature and the foliage and everything, but there are a lot of artists
Right.
up here, and people, you know, that moved up from New York and whatnot. So when you were in high school, um, did you know, like, early on, freshman and sophomore year, like, you were 100% gonna study art in college?
Yeah, I did.
And go to the college that you went to?
I did. Yeah.
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 So what were you working on in high school? What type of
Like
stuff?
my own artwork.
Yeah.
Let me think. I would. It was a lot of like, and I'll make one other connection. I feel like there was a time in middle school where I was making like more kind of like more authentic artwork to myself, and that was when I began keeping these notebooks, which I still keep to this day, which consist of a lot of different, very random, a lot of dreams in them. They'll have, and I started those when I was 13, and I actually stopped at a point in high school. And those kind of like based more like in essence kind of describe like the type of artistic work I do today too. So that's why I'm bringing them up. Um, so I feel like it's important to answer like what I was doing in high school. Um, and those like have, you know, fragments of conversation. They'll have drawings, random things torn out, collaged into them, all different things in them. You know, I have like the one first book I kept is like so thick. I had like shells taped into it from the beach, smashed, and I had a dead fish in one. Like things like that and drawings. But then as high school came around, you get, you know, you have different interests that can get in the way of like um of whatever might be your true interest in your life, and especially for me for artwork. So at the time, my artwork became a little more literal, but also it was still kind of unique because like I'm thinking about what I was doing in art in my art class then, and I'm thinking about what other people would do too. But I would like do drawings and paintings and like collages, and these were really felt good coming from me. I just feel I could have, you know, that was a little more authentic. But I would do drawings of things like appliances, like refrigerators
Yeah.
and toasters, things that don't interest many other people,
Yeah.
especially in high school. I always liked things that were kind of mundane and boring. But it's not really that boring to me. It's kind of like going back to like talking about like why someone would make artwork. It's those things kind of intrigue me, like kind of monotonous things. So those like kind of influence or are little symbols like I think that can describe some of my thinking in later you know, later artistic projects I did. But yeah, I was like doing things like that.
Yeah. No.
I wasn't doing anything like super like cool portraits of like rappers or anything.
No,
Like, you know,
obviously, but you
no,
were
I'm just saying.
you were always doing. I feel like even like early on, like you said, big like the mixed media stuff, like you said,
Yeah,
with like
yeah,
the
yeah.
fish and the shells, and laying those down and then drawing and then adding some, you know, collages and stuff. Yeah, I love.
Yeah.
If you look at like your sketchbooks, and you said you stopped at 13 with the dreams and stuff, but you've always. I know I've seen a bunch of your work like that. With
Yeah.
the sketches and the mixed media stuff.
I kept going. There was just a little pause
Yeah.
in like literally in high school at the end of it when I stopped because it seemed more interesting to drink and do drugs
Of
and
course.
draw toasters. So,
Yeah.
without thinking too much about other things.
Yeah.
So, that's that.
Yeah, high school definitely had a lot of drugging and drinking
Right.
for a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly.
So you graduated in what year did you graduate from Burberry?
2007.
2007, and then you went to
Then I was in the new school in the city.
the new school.
Yeah, Parsons New School.
Yeah, and how was that experience?
It was good.
As a freshman.
That was good.
Yeah.
It was. I had been going into the city
Of course.
a lot, before then, and my family had come from the city, and I had family still in the city, in Queens, and so yeah, when I started, I was
It was comfortable for you.
yeah, it was, of course, yeah, it was
Yeah.
comfortable. I was enjoying my classes, but then also enjoying other things that took me away from them.
Yeah.
But that's what can happen too when you're young going to school.
Of course. And
yeah.
and just the
Yeah.
essence of New York City, the power and spirit of
Right.
it as a creative, it's,
Yeah.
there's so much to stimulate you in many different ways, literally and figuratively. But like you said, just how you've been inspired by like the mundane stuff, which other people may consider mundane. There's also just the characters and whatnot that you can tap into in the city. And I feel like you met a lot of cool, interesting people and
Yeah.
whatnot. And I look back on some of the art that you were doing during that time, and yeah, it definitely shines through.
Yeah. So like, how did maybe these interactions like in the
Yeah.
city influence my
Yeah.
artwork? Well, they definitely did in ways where like, I guess different experience, but this is just for me in particular, and I don't know. It seems like almost the same way as I could be interested in something like drawing a washing machine. It's like I liked getting into whatever could be done and experimenting with things. Like I remember I did, I'm not like loved gambling or anything, or I'm like a gambling addict, but I started going to OTB for like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, they went bankrupt. After like 2 weeks, just coincidentally, and those like inspired a bunch of like nice pieces of artwork I made while I was there. But I was like really, I don't know, getting into like, I like experiencing different things, and those influence different different projects, the way like any kind of interaction can. Maybe watching like a road rage incident will make me want to do a painting, or going to OTB. Yeah, I did these drawings of these horses there, and I did the one in there, and it was kind of fun because everyone would go in there, and there was like, if you're asking about like interesting characters being like, you can find them all meeting there.
Of course.
Not like everybody, but you know what I mean. There's definitely there was an eclectic mix of people there, and I was with another friend of mine who I was going there with a lot, who was staying at my apartment during that time, and we'd go there and bring like a little bit of something to drink and stuff, and
Yeah.
and hang out there and just do whatever. And meanwhile, I'm working my freelance job, so there I am with my free time. I use so well.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so I was there, and like I remember this one piece I did where I did all these horses, and then I'm on the tickets, like where I would pick my numbers. I was writing down like things that people were like yelling at the horses,
Yeah.
like at their horses, like kind of like funny shit, and then I was like turning those into horses, and yeah. But anyway, I like those.
No, experiences like that.
Those kind of those influence some of my artwork.
Yeah, and then, you know, there's a lot of crazy nights.
Mm-hmm.
Just with art and music, the connection of drugs and alcohol is
Right.
obviously there.
Mm-hmm.
That brings some things out. But,
Yeah.
so what year did you graduate from the new school?
Well, I actually transferred to School of Visual Arts.
Okay, so like your parents?
Yeah, I ended up transferring there. I graduated in 2011.
And then, what was the biggest difference between those two schools?
Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. One is more fashion. Not that I was studying
SVA
fashion.
is more fashion?
No.
The new school
New
is?
School. Or Parsons was. Yeah, there's more fashion people. But then there's more like, there's a wider range of like academic courses at the new school too that you can take because it's part of the new school. Parsons was, so yeah, so there's that difference.
So by the time you graduated, this is what I've always been curious about too, but just looking at your artwork, who were some of the artists that inspired you? Like, from being like a kid to then by the time that you got to, you know, college graduation. I'm just curious of like some of the artists, and they don't even have to be like painters or anything. They can be specific musicians or specific writers. I've just always been curious about this.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, there's so many influences, and it's funny you said it like that. Like who else could they be? Because I had like an ongoing list of different influences.
Yeah,
like writers, musicians, some like fictional characters, even like all sorts of ones. I actually had it on my phone. I should bring it out.
Yeah,
remember.
I'm honestly curious.
But like I know who's on the list is like people like there's like a artist who's very famous who was a teacher of mine named Jack Whitten, who died recently, and he's on there. There's another artist, Mike Kelly, as far as visual artists, but then Gigi Allen's on the list, and Leonard Bernstein, and Frank Lloyd Wright, and Bugs Bunny, and Mike Tyson.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
See,
there's like I have like
like
I was just making a list of like people like random, you know, influences, and not that I had to like sit there and theorize why. I just put them on the list because I just
stream of consciousness.
Yeah. So so there's a bunch of artists on that. Yeah, a lot of musicians too. Scott Joplin was on the list. But it's pretty big. Like.
What about some writers?
Some writers. There are writers on the list. Who would it be though? I don't even know if they're on that like big list I was making. But if you want to know like some writers I liked, like there's someone I read a lot of named Claude Levi-Strauss.
Okay.
But he was a anthropologist, a structural anthropologist. So that was like more like theory books I was reading, but then a lot of other ones were like I really liked the book Myth of Sisyphus during that time, which was Albert Camus. And I'm trying to think what else as far as other writers. There's really so many like as far as poets and writers. E. Cummings, like the poet.
Yeah, poetry especially. I feel like I could see inspiring your work.
Yeah, some more than others, because to be honest, like I can read a bunch of, like if I sit and read a bunch of poems, I'm like, you know, only some like really will hit me and be like, oh, that's like.
No, it has to be like really, right time, right place.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not like diving into poetry and things like that, but
it's just like a singular one at the right time.
You know, there wasn't a ton of like writers where I just like read like all of their books or things like that, but like I'm thinking back to early, books that I read, but like As I Lie Dying by Faulkner was a book that I liked a lot. Yeah, Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung. I read a lot of
Also,
their work.
the one other thing I wanted to ask was
Uh huh.
about museums.
Oh,
Were
museums.
you hitting museums a lot while you were in college or not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh huh.
all of them.
Yeah. Here and at
Like,
at a reasonable pace. I wasn't
yeah.
going insane running around to
What's
them,
your
but
favorite museum?
in the city.
Yeah.
Um. Uh. I guess it's easy for people to like, since I'm an artist, be like, oh, MoMA and the Whitney, which are good and everything. But like as far as other museums, I always like the American Folk Art Museum, which is a smaller museum and has more like underrepresented, self-taught and folk artists.
Yeah, I've never been to
Because
that one.
yeah, they kind of yeah, I always liked folk art and this self-taught artists that you would see at these places. I found them, yeah, I
Yeah,
found them interesting because they're like, I always felt they were making artwork with no enormous intention to like
exactly. To be
to ever be
famous.
like totally noticed, and yeah, so you
Exactly.
get to see like the yeah what they're thinking about with the without those pressures and
Yeah,
without like having uh, to slave over like formal technique and things like that. So
exactly.
it was always inspiring to me to go
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. So when you got out of college, do you remember like I'm curious to know when did you start doing the windows at Bergdorf, but do you remember like your first big like freelance gig that you felt really good about?
Um, the first big freelance gig that was probably like when I started working at Bergdorf's,
Yeah,
which
and
was
when
like
was
on
that?
and off. That was in like 2000, um, 2011. Yeah, so I was working for them, and then I would work on on photo shoots too. Now I do more photo shoots. Back then it was less working on photo shoots, and I would be like assisting, um, set designers on photo shoots and things like that. But now I'm doing the set design. So,
How'd you get the Bergdorf gig?
um, I got the Bergdorf gig mostly through the other work that I had done in fashion because I had been working on like fashion photo shoots much earlier than that. Like assisting on them and working on them, doing like assistant styling and things like that. And that was through my dad who directed photo shoots at that time. So that kind of transitioned me over,
It's awesome.
or kept me in that world rather.
Yeah.
So
And so you've been doing that on and off. So what have
yeah.
you been working on most recently now that COVID
Oh, COVID.
is done
Yeah.
and things are back?
Um, Most recently, well, right now I'm going to be I'm collaborating on a one of the holiday Christmas windows at Bergdorf's. So that's a pretty big thing because in all the time I've worked there, I didn't have a collaboration like this where I'm actually doing all the painting for one of the windows that, yeah,
Wow, that's
that will
awesome.
be on Fifth Avenue. So that's something I'm kind of just beginning, and I'll work on over the summer. And I'm working on my own artwork and things like that,
Yeah, I know
which I
you.
was doing over COVID too, which was nice to have free time to do.
Yeah, and you had a little gallery yourself, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. Because do you still have it or no?
No, I let the gallery go, but it's still
It's still running,
prospering.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Tell.
good.
Yeah, I want to hear about that, and people do too. So, how did that start,
Well,
and where is it?
I
Was
have
it?
that was in Long Island City, and really I was just there one day. I don't even remember what I was doing, and I had a friend who was an older guy who had a studio. He was a marble carver. He was a stone carver, stone and marble. One of the last few people that you can find who like does all hand carved stonework, like a big, you know, human forms and things like that. Most are done on like computers and CNC routers now. So he has this old stone carving studio in Long Island City that he had been in since the 60s. So I just went over there to say hi, and he had transformed the front of it, which was a big garage, into a gallery, and it kept going back. It was a big space, and we went out to lunch, and I was talking to him about what he's going to do with the space, and he said, "Oh, I just want to kind of show some of." He does his own artwork as well as the like commissioned stonework and things like that. He did all the marble work in the White House and things like that. So he was pretty well known. But he would be trying to work on his own artwork, which was more experimental. So he wanted to start showcasing some of the things he had been doing in this, you know, gallery he had built in the front, which was all white walls and everything. And I suggested to him that he should think about, you know, curating some other shows in it. And as we kept talking, he's like, well, you know, I wouldn't know how to do that. He's like, but if you wanted to. I said, well, yeah. I said, I can do it. So so from there we just decided, well, why don't we just make an entire gallery, and we can still show your work, but we'll show other people's work as well. So that's really how it began. So it started like that.
And how long did you operate that?
2 years, and it was just becoming a little too much for me with the other work that I do, and also wanting to work on my own artwork. So I, you know, peacefully left.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, everything was fine, but I didn't want to be a full-time gallerist.
No, of
which
course.
is like what it would have taken, because it's a lot of work. There's a show every month. There's promoting the artists. There's, you know, soliciting publications and writers to come to the show. There's events in between shows. So, you know, it's a lot of work. So you have to put aside, like, you know, it's not easy to be your own, you know, to work on your own artwork if you're doing things like that, and you're focusing on a daily basis on other people's artwork, which it was also very fulfilling and nice to do. But I didn't want to do it forever.
Yeah, no,
so
there's a lot of variables.
Yeah, but what's great is
Somebody
the gallery is still functioning. He's still going with a new director, and it's doing really well.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's in Queens. It's called 550 Gallery, and yeah, it's still there, Long Island City.
Yeah.
So it's doing well.
And then the other thing, I remember seeing not too long ago, something you did was featured, like somebody wrote about it in the New York Times, right?
Yeah.
What piece was that?
That was, I did an exhibition right before COVID.
Okay.
Luckily, because it was like a few days after, like they were
shut
talking
down.
about like shutting everything down. So this went very well before, but it was during when there's all the art fairs in the city in March, Armory Week, and there's a fair called Spring Break Art Fair that's in Los Angeles and New York, and I did an exhibition where it was a whole concept that I made. I also plan to do some other places as well, but it turned the gallery space into a physical crossword puzzle environment that you can walk into. So you have that's easy to picture. I don't have to describe it. So it's like walking into a puzzle, but then also some of the blocks, like the black blocks, are actual blocks coming off the walls too. So it's like dimensional, not just on the walls. And the idea was with that is you would pick a theme. The theme of that whole fair this year, it's a curator-based art fair, was in excess. So the crossword puzzle was under the theme in excess. So I pick a bunch of artwork under that theme. and it's a little bit free associative. That's how it's supposed to be with the concept. And I put it within the crossword puzzle environment. Then I get a crossword puzzle constructor who's from the New York Times, and does New York Times puzzles. His name is Jim Quinlan. And he interpreted the artwork into a crossword puzzle as the statement for the show. So rather than like reading an entire statement, which can be a little like intimidating to people who are not like immersed in the art world, and that was what inspired a lot of it also, is something that's like a little more like diplomatic towards other people, because it, rather than this like exclusive feeling of the art world and these big convoluted statements that some people don't really care to read before looking at the artwork.
Yeah.
So anyway, instead they would come into the gallery, which is a crossword puzzle, and pick up a crossword puzzle, which is a series of questions and clues under the theme.
Yeah.
And so really it makes
so it's like immersive.
It's immersive, but it's a new way to think about what they're looking at. They can look at it and look at a series of questions rather than being told precisely what it's about. And then it makes them think of their own questions and wonder what the answers are. And that's it. So it's like, you can solve the puzzle. But also what I was originally thinking with it too, which would have been cool, but as it turned out, it's hard to make crossword puzzles. Actually, it's a kind of a big a skill. Not just like you pick questions and you could put them into some computer program and it'll make a type of grid, but I wanted to really get a bunch of puzzles and have different people make them. Like I wanted to get like someone like the crossword puzzle constructor, then like maybe like a felon who's in jail, and send him a picture of all the work and make him write a bunch of questions, and then like a baker, like all different people, a bus driver, and then you get a puzzle with a series of questions or clues pertaining to the work, and there's really never a wrong answer. They would get some information about the artwork and the images that are in the show, and then they would create their interpretation. So that was the concept. So that was what you saw mentioned in the New York Times.
Yeah, and where can people find that?
It was Spring Break Art Fair.
Okay, Spring Break Art Fair.
Yeah, and they have an Instagram and website and things like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that was probably a cool moment for you.
Yeah, that was fun. And then COVID was right after that. And then there was a lot of free time after that, but
So, another question that I had that I've been asking like other musicians, and I'm curious to see your thoughts on it. Why do you think that there's such like a defined connection between pain and artists?
Pain?
Yeah.
Like in artists, like in general?
Yeah, and just like their personal lives. If you go through like history, there's so many examples.
Right.
Just struggle or whatever, and it translates into this pretty brilliant creations.
Yeah. I think it may be because, you have. I think probably what comes first is maybe a certain amount of like anguish, or you call it pain, or solace towards like everyday and contemporary life. Maybe that might be a little different or more so than other people participating in the world, and that gives them a reason to try and collect information, to try and find something more through some sort of other means than the day-to-day that
rat race.
Yeah, that are set out as options for us. So I think that I think it's something close to that. At least the way I see it is kind of looking for a little something more to give you some sort of fulfillment or a hope towards something bigger in like the trivial aspects of everyday life, like going back to me doing the drawing a toaster or something. It's like, this is everyday life, and it is what it is. We know what to expect, and yeah, but I think that's kind of like the tip of the iceberg. Some people have, bigger mental illnesses too. Yeah, and I think people can find, find it as a release, an outlet of some kind, and then sometimes they can create a really important interpretation of the world around them into a new perspective that becomes an important piece of artwork. Maybe.
Exactly, and then other people can relate to it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And find something in it. And and then the other thing is just, I think that COVID and everything shutting down.
Yeah.
Just showed the world that how important the arts really are, because there are a lot of people on the other side of that are living pretty monotonous lives, and maybe they're working a job that they don't necessarily love, and they're just scraping by, and they may not be creatives themselves, but on the weekend they get to go see an exhibit, or they get to go see some music, or they get to go see a comedy show. So I was just curious, how important do you think the arts are as a whole to the humanity, like to our species?
Oh, well,
as an artist yourself.
I think it's pretty important, not just to like consider, doing some yourself with it, which I think is something that's available to more people inside of themselves, whether they ever considered it or not. I think it can do some good to try and, to think about. It's funny just saying, like, think about artwork. Like, what is that? But, like, to, whether it's writing or artwork can be expressed in so many different mediums. So it's like a comedian is putting together a narrative, and they're going up and they're presenting it to people in order to, to show a different outlook of situations. So there's a lot of ways I think people can express themselves, and then whether people want to call it artwork or not, that's a big conversation in itself. So it's like everyone's always like, oh, well, is it art or is it not? But it's like, there's a lot of good, I think, healthy ways and that people could express themselves and and learn about artwork. But yeah, I think it's really important.
Yeah, it's vital. I think creative expression as a whole,
especially in music and everything. I don't think people totally realize how it's impacted them, because it's really everywhere. That's why it's even like such a big question and hard to just like totally answer. It's really everywhere. So it's like with that, it's like easy for someone to overlook and say, who might not think they're interested in our work, to say it's not important.
Exactly, and then that's why I think that the whole COVID thing it just brought it even further up to the surface when it all got taken away.
And
just because you hear all these stories about schools and stuff cutting their art programs and whatnot and budgets, and I think that just creative expression as a whole is vital to humanity. But the other thing is, so if people are interested in seeing your artwork, where's the best place to find it?
I have a website that has some of my artwork on it, and my Instagram, which sadly haven't been posting a lot on it. I'm just not that active on it. But I'd like to change that, so I might start posting more if people want to.
So your website's just
Yeah, it's
ElliotTheCesare.com.
ElliotTheCesare.com. And that's what my Instagram would be also. And there's a link to another Instagram account which has more of my like fashion work on that. And yeah, you can see it.
You should definitely. Social media is a double-edged sword, but
right?
it's definitely.
You have to do it now.
It's definitely useful.
Yeah, exactly.
It also it sucks, but I mean, a lot of people definitely enjoy seeing your work.
Yeah, I gotta do a little more.
So yeah, besides it's awesome to hear about the holiday windows that you're working at Bergdorf. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up? Anything else you're working on?
Anything else I'm working on, or like, what else? Like in terms of like my own artwork, and everything.
Are you still doing like a lot of the mixed media stuff?
Yeah, I'm doing mixed. Yeah, still doing a lot of mixed media things, and during COVID, I was actually surprisingly doing a lot of like photo collages, like because I have a lot of Polaroid cameras, and I was like taking pictures of people, and which obviously it doesn't sound like much of a COVID activity, interacting with people, but I was doing that actually. Like during
at the park and stuff, right?
Yeah, in the summer. Well, that was one thing, but in the summer I was in Coney Island, like right after COVID. I stayed out there for like a few weeks with a girl I was seeing at the time, and we just rented an Airbnb, which was super cheap, and we were just hanging out. I was meeting random people like every day, and taking Polaroids and making collages on the spot, like with different found materials and wrappers and things from Nathan's, and mixed with drawing and people sitting around, things like that, which I've done those sorts of things for a long time. So that was kind of like something I was doing a lot during COVID, which doesn't sound like a quarantine activity, but I hate to say it, surprisingly, Coney Island was like kind of popping.
Yeah.
During people were out on the beach and stuff still, and all the rides weren't open.
Legendary.
But yeah, and actually, funny enough, another thing which I enjoyed a lot, and I didn't do this like for the money because I had to, but I had a bunch of like Mets and Yankees shirts that I got from some job a while back. Like I had like 200 of them.
Of like what, current ones?
Yeah, like
ones?
No, like right from the stadium. They were like the official ones.
What job was that you got those?
I forget which
200?
job it was. Yeah, I had a lot. And they were really nice shirts. They had like the MLB like official.
Yeah.
So I had had a bunch of them, Mets, Yankees, all different styles, and I had been planning for a long time. I was like, I want to go out and I'm just gonna sell them on the boardwalk. So during COVID, at that time when we were renting the Airbnb out there, I set up shop like right on the boardwalk, and
what, like a little table or no?
Yeah, like with a. Well, it turned into eventually we got a table, but I hung them right on the fence on the boardwalk, going up to the boardwalk, with a sign and everything, and I was like, I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, yeah, I've been wanting to do this, so let's just do it. And I hung them up on the fence and everything. I had never really sold anything outside. I knew I wanted to give it a go, though.
You never sold art outside anywhere?
Not really, like selling things on the street. Never yelling.
No,
I was about to do. That's what I did in Coney Island. So I was like, so I hung up everything, and I was like, okay. I was like, I gotta start like, and then it hit me. I was like, I'm gonna have to, start calling, yelling this out soon. And like, I was a little nervous at first. I'm like hanging my little shirts up on the fence, and then it was hitting me. I was like, I'm gonna have to get in this, or else I'm not gonna sell. I'm gonna be out here all fucking week.
No, you can't be just all sit like
there.
Me,
No, I'm not gonna sit there on a little. So I hung them up. Yeah, I had a sign, and then all of a sudden I just started going. At first I was like Mets, Yankees, $10, Mets. But then, like, after a minute or two, I was yelling, Mets, Yankees, MLB official, $10, Mets,
Step right up.
I couldn't talk by the end of the day. I was yelling it.
Shot?
Yeah, I was
so
like,
you were slanging them though?
Yeah, I sold all of them. We went out and spent all the money on the boardwalk the rest of the week.
No
way. It was nice.
That's
and we were just
epic.
And then at that same time, I'm taking Polaroids and doing collages and stuff, meeting people there. And that was really fun because you meet all these
characters.
Out in Coney Island. So that was fun. And then we were like, it was nice summer days, have a speaker out there playing music.
Yeah.
Mixing
Cocktails.
some drinks. Yeah, exactly. Got the ice cups at the bodega and mix some drinks out there and play music and just sell these shirts all day. And I was making collages, taking pictures and stuff. So that was that was actually a pretty good memory. But that goes back to like, what can inspire some artwork too, is like kind of something simple like that.
Situations
also.
like that.
I was gluing photos to these shirts, at the end of the day too. I had so many damn shirts. I was, just gluing them onto one of the shirts and painting over it when I got home and things like that. So it's like, so that, I'm glad I remembered that. That was a highlight, Coney Island. Oh, and then also we ended up getting a table because this guy, his name's Michael, he owns the oldest bar on the boardwalk. It's called Ruby's. And we were going, and we befriended him, and we were hanging out over there on the boardwalk earlier in the week before we started selling them. And then, Michael came by one day and, decided to treat us like any other, vendor out there. He's like, oh, I have tables and stuff for you. Let me bring you back here. And he brought us, a table and everything and really hooked us up rather than just like hanging them on the fence how I had them before.
Yeah,
but it was
Michael's the homie.
Yeah. So that was fun. That was a good
that's awesome.
A good memory of that time. So
yeah, Coney Island special.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
What's your I have two other questions.
Yeah.
What's your favorite cocktail? I know you're big. You enjoy your libations. So, what's your favorite cocktail?
Well,
if you're going out. I know it depends, probably the spot you're going.
To be honest, that is true. I don't drink like crazy. Like I'm not out drinking cocktails all the time.
No, I know, but
or anything
what's your
even
go-to?
Close.
What's your go-to?
I
know you used to drink some brandy maybe back in the day.
Oh really? Yeah, probably. Yeah, if I'm at a dinner or something, I like a Manhattan or something like that, or even a dirty martini, just a martini and things like that. If I do want to have a drink, I usually like something like that.
Yeah.
Not like big cups of beer and things. All those bubbles and everything isn't really for me.
And what's your favorite park in New York City?
Favorite park?
There's some good ones.
Yeah, there are some good ones. Well, when I was... It depends. Like, now...
I got some good memories in some of them.
Yeah, I used to hang out in the parks a lot with my friends. And we would, definitely spend a lot of time in, like, Union Square and Tompkins a lot.
I bumped into you in Union Square one time.
Yeah, and Tompkins. And those, but that was another... But now, I spend a lot of time in Riverside Park now. Because it's close by where I live. And... Yeah, and it's a beautiful park. I even though Central Park's not that far away, I usually always go to Riverside because I like being close to the water.
I love it.
It's really nice. Sometimes Central Park is like, surprisingly with how big it is, it's really packed with people, and I'm like, what? Oh, Jesus, this is insane.
I love Riverside.
But Riverside's really beautiful. I really like it over there, so I tend to go over there. I like being by the water. It's nice.
I love it. Yeah, even I used to just hang out on the East River too, on some of those benches up there in the 90s. But you see all these headlines and stuff about people saying, "Oh, New York's dead," blah blah blah, which is I know it to be untrue, but what do you have to say to that? Because you're always in the city. And what do you see firsthand?
It's things are like, of course, like changing in the city. I'm trying to think, like, it's hard to know what they're referring to exactly when they're saying New York is dead. It certainly isn't the type of place you can, like, get off the bus with, like you're in some old ass movie with a briefcase and like a bandana with a stick, like full of like your shit, and hop in a cheap hotel.
No.
You know, like, you're not going to do that anymore. If that's what you think, you're going to go start anew there. If you're going to start anew there, you're really going to bust your ass. And you're probably going to work a lot and not do what you thought you would come to fulfill initially. It's going to be a lot harder. So in that way, you don't have that same spirit as much, but you definitely have tons of new people still coming and trying to make it work regardless.
Of course.
So there's still a lot of like cool places opening up that aren't like super commercial and interesting alternative art and music spots. They've just moved locations a lot to the outer boroughs and everything, which also are now getting expensive.
Long Island City especially has really like been on the come up.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's but now you see, who knows what will be next, because rent has gone down a little bit, not anything crazy, but you know, a lot of businesses are shutting down, these big boutiques, and you know, so there's a lot of vacant stores. So who knows what that means for the future. Maybe there will be room in a place like Manhattan for
more artists and creative.
Maybe
and
again, or for other types of stores that we may have seen closed down more so in the past 30 years or whatever.
Instead of like Dwayne Reed's and Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly. So like I think a lot of those locations, of even places like that, there's less of. So I can't say that I've seen any significant change in the types of businesses. I just see more, vacant storefronts. So what I'm saying is, I don't know what that means for the future. Who knows? So, but yeah, there's still plenty to do. I like it there. I'm not bored yet.
No, of course not.
Yeah. So I don't think it's dead.
No. Me neither. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us, Elliott, and I continue to look forward to the art that you pump out. I hope to see, if you ever do like another gallery exhibit or anything, let me know. I'd love to come check it out.
Definitely, I will. Yeah, hopefully there'll be something in the near future.
Yeah, and then the holiday windows at Bergdorf Goodman's, I'll definitely keep my eye out on those. So, yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you for coming on the Passion Collective podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.